Just as the bride was about to take her father's arm and walk into the wedding aisle, 2 police officers appeared at the grand entrance. And within seconds, the man respected by the entire family was placed in handcuffs right in front of his daughter, accused of a crime that had been buried for more than 25 years. That morning, Emily Carter believed she was about to experience the happiest day of her life. She stood before the mirror in the white wedding gown her mother had always dreamed of seeing her wear. Outside, every seat was filled with guests. White flowers lined the aisle. The soft piano music drifted through the air like a gentle breath. Her father, Richard Carter, stood beside her, carefully adjusting her veil. He was the man Emily had always relied on, a quiet, dependable father who always seemed to appear whenever life knocked her down. But today, his hands were trembling. Emily noticed immediately. She asked if he was all right. Richard smiled, but the smile looked as fragile as a sheet of paper ready to tear. He told her he was simply overwhelmed with emotion. What no one knew was that inside Richard's suit pocket was an old letter. It had arrived at his house the week before. Written across the envelope was a single sentence: "I know what you did that night. The woman in the last row." As the ceremony began, Emily linked her arm through her father's and walked toward the groom. Every eye in the room followed her. But Richard's gaze drifted toward the last row of seats. There sat a silver-haired woman dressed in black, silent as a shadow. Her name was Margaret Hayes. More than 25 years earlier, her younger brother had disappeared after a warehouse fire. Police ruled it an accident. Her family buried their grief without ever learning the truth. But Margaret never believed it. For years, she searched. She collected documents, witness statements, and faded photographs. Piece by piece, she rebuilt a story everyone else had forgotten. Eventually, she found one name appearing again and again throughout the old records. Richard Carter, the perfect father in Emily's eyes, the respected husband in the eyes of the entire town, and the last person seen with Margaret's brother before the night of the fire. The moment the wedding fell silent, just as the pastor asked who would give this bride away, Richard tightened his grip on Emily's hand. He opened his mouth to answer. Then the doors of the chapel suddenly swung open. 2 police officers walked in. The music stopped. Emily turned around. The groom froze in place. Her mother, Linda, turned pale as though an old nightmare had suddenly returned. One of the officers approached Richard and read the arrest warrant aloud. The charge was connected to the death of Daniel Hayes, a case dating back more than 25 years. Whispers exploded throughout the room. Emily stepped back. She stared at her father, waiting for him to protest, waiting for him to become angry, waiting for him to tell everyone it was a mistake. But Richard simply lowered his head, and that silence shattered her heart. At the police station, Richard finally spoke. Years ago, he and Daniel had worked together at a shipping company. Daniel discovered that senior executives were embezzling money and planned to hand evidence over to the authorities. Richard was young, struggling financially, terrified of losing his job, and terrified of being dragged into the investigation. On the night of the fire, Richard met Daniel to convince him to stay quiet. They argued. During the confrontation, Daniel fell and struck his head against the concrete floor. Richard panicked. He did not help him. He ran away. Later, an electrical malfunction caused the warehouse to catch fire. Daniel's death disappeared beneath the ashes. Richard had not started the fire, but he had left a living man behind in the darkness. For more than 25 years, he lived with a beautiful family, a respectable career, and a daughter who trusted him completely. And every time Emily called him the best father in the world, Richard heard Daniel's voice echoing through his memories. The mother who knew. Emily believed her mother was also a victim of the truth. But when she returned home, she found Linda sitting quietly in the living room, holding an old wooden box. Inside were letters Richard had written but never mailed. Confession letters. Linda had known for years. She knew her husband was connected to Daniel's death. She knew he lived every day in fear. Yet she chose silence, wanting to protect her family, protect her daughter, and preserve the perfect image they had built together. Emily burst into tears. Not because her father was guilty, but because her entire life had been built upon the silence of the people she trusted most. She asked her mother, "If I were not getting married today, if that woman had never appeared, would you ever have told me the truth?" Linda said nothing. And within that unspoken answer, Emily realized that some hidden family truths do not simply destroy the past, they destroy trust in the present. The wedding was no longer a wedding. News spread quickly. A wedding day turned into a Reddit family drama story that no one in town could stop talking about. Some people felt sorry for Emily. Others judged Richard. Many criticized Linda. But Emily refused to let her life become entertainment for other people's curiosity. She removed the wedding ring she had not yet worn, walked out of the chapel, and went to see Margaret. The older woman showed no satisfaction. She simply looked at Emily through eyes that had cried themselves dry many years ago. Emily apologized, even though she had committed no wrongdoing. Margaret replied that sometimes an apology from an innocent person is the first thing that helps a wounded soul believe that truth still matters. The day Richard faced the court. Several months later, Richard pleaded guilty. He did not ask the public for forgiveness. He did not blame his youth. He did not claim to be a victim himself. He simply looked at Emily and said, "I loved you with every good thing that remained inside me, but I was never brave enough to live as the man your love believed I was." Emily cried. But this time, she did not run to embrace him. She understood that forgiveness does not erase guilt. Love does not mean concealment, and a family cannot be built upon a secret that forces someone else to suffer for a lifetime. She walked out of the courthouse no longer as the bride abandoned on her wedding day, but as a woman strong enough to step beyond the story others had written for her. Years later, Emily never wore that wedding dress again. She kept it carefully inside a box, not to remember the most painful day of her life, but to remind herself that truth, even when it arrives late, can still clear the path toward a cleaner and more honest future. This story is more than family drama Reddit stories. It is a reminder that dramatic storytelling in real life does not always begin with a scream. Sometimes it begins with a silence that lasts far too long. If you were Emily, would you be able to forgive your father? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss more emotional family stories filled with secrets, heartbreak, and the hidden truths behind doors that seem peaceful from the outside.